I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Canon. We've been Disney fans our entire lives. And now, as childless adults, we're undertaking a journey through the media that shaped our lives.
Trying to find out if what made them special is still there.
We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Hi, Tuesday. We forgot to do this last week.
Yeah. But this be the final week of Talk Like a Pirate Month.
Avast there, me hearty, we're having a party. It's Talk Like a Pirate
Month.
Yo-ho!
It'd be exactly that.
And how are we wrapping it up with one more trip through the story of Treasure Island, this time Muppet Treasure Island. We're talking about the Muppets again. We
never give up an opportunity to talk about the Muppets.
Yeah, this was
Get used to that now, folks. If we can talk about the Muppets, we will talk about the Muppets.
Yeah, this was the big follow-up to Muppet Christmas Carol. This was like the next film after that, and Muppet Christmas Carol did well, not doing very well in theaters. It did gangbusters on home video, which warranted Disney to work with them again to do the sequel, sort of, if you want to call it a sequel, follow-up.
Yeah, this was kind of interesting because this is, I believe, the second film to be released after Jim's death.
Yeah, after Henson's death, Steve Whitmire being Kermit in this one.
Yeah, as he was in Christmas Carol.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of his big debut. And I believe that Richard Hunt, I can't remember if he worked on Christmas Carol, but I know he died shortly before Christmas Carol was released.
Mm-hmm.
And Muppet Christmas Carol is dedicated to both of them. But this is the first Muppet movie without either of them. Without Jim Henson or without Richard Hunt, who you best know as Scooter and stuff. And for that reason, Scooter is not in this one. The two Muppet characters that took the longest to recast after the performer's death were Rolf, who is in this movie but doesn't speak, and Scooter, who is not in this movie at all. And it took even longer for Scooter to be recast, if memory serves, than it did Rolf, because both of those were considered to be the closest to not only like the voice, but also the personality of their respective performers.
Mm.
Everybody thinks that Kermit and Jim are really, close together, but people who knew him said that his personality was more Rolf the dog. And Scooter was pretty much entirely based on Richard Hunt's personality. So I think they were a bit precious in recasting those at first, because of that.
Yeah, there's also the first Muppet film where Frank Oz did not do any puppeteering.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to talk about because it was rather interesting that Frank Oz, while still the main performer for Fozzie Bear and Miss Piggy and all that, he provides the voices in the movie, but he was busy directing a different film at the time and couldn't be on set, so they gave all of his characters to another puppeteer to do on set, and then they brought in Frank Oz to loop all the dialogue over after filming.
And of course now Frank Oz is kind of completely divorced from the Muppets and kind of doesn't do any of the characters anymore since the Disney buyout.
Well, yeah, he has pretty much completely retired from that. But the thing is that was kind of a long time coming. I think he was already thinking of retiring kind of before.
Plus, he was doing more director work anyway, and
he's very good at it. I mean, he's a brilliant puppeteer, but he's also a brilliant director. So,
yeah. As we kind of alluded this in the past, this was Disney's second attempt at Treasure Island. Treasure Planet would be 5 years after that, and it's really odd that they would make another Treasure Island 5 years after this movie, even if it is animated, even if it is in space. It is mostly the same story.
A bit.
There's definitely differences between how the Henson companies took Treasure Island and how the Walt Disney Animation Studio took Treasure Island.
Yeah, the thing about it though is, I think this one is much more in name only. Strangely, I think Treasure Planet is closer to the actual story than this one is. We've mentioned Muppet Christmas Carol a couple of times already. Muppet Christmas Carol is considered one of the better Christmas Carol adaptations as far as faithfulness to the actual story. Down to using, I mean, Gonzo just speaks direct lines from the novel.
Then there kind of is a third, and I guess you can call this a trilogy. Granted, Muppets from Space would be the next theatrical follow-up, but they did kind of do one more storybook-based movie, Muppets Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, that was like a TV thing.
And it was under Disney, because that was like right after Disney bought the Muppets. And it did
and
air
on ABC.
It did air on ABC and the Magical World of Disney. So,
it was okay. If you like Muppets, it's worth watching, but it's not the best version of either Wizard of Oz or the Muppets, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
This, I think, is in the middle of those two. I think as far as Muppets adapting classic stories that everybody knows, and of course Muppets had already been adapting books and stuff. I mean, they'd done Emmett Otter by this point.
Cinderella,
Frog Prince, yeah. They did a lot of fairy tales, and then the Emmett Otter thing was kind of a special case. But this was kind of their classics trilogy, I guess, as far as novels. They did really, really good with Christmas Carol as far as adaptation. They did not do so well with Wizard of Oz as far as adaptation. This is somewhere in the middle. You know, there are parts I like and parts that I go, I do question that as a choice. But, you know, we'll get into that as we get into everything else. Let's talk a little bit about the background people.
All right.
We've got pretty much all the typical Muppet performers are still here, with the exception of Jim Henson and Richard Hunt, as previously mentioned. Mm-hmm. Pretty much everybody else you know as like the OG classic Muppet performers are
Dave Gold, Jerry Nelson.
Yeah.
Amazingly, Dave Gold is credited above Steve Whitmire in this movie.
Well, Dave Gold is, I mean, no offense to Steve Whitmire, who I do think is an amazing puppeteer, but I mean, Dave Gold is probably my favorite Muppet performer.
It's I mean, in the sense that Gonzo is credited above Kermit.
Yeah, I mean, well, Gonzo has more screen time. That's just how you credit people sometimes, you know? It's like
Kermit is a humble frog.
Maybe Gonzo has a better agent. I don't know, dude. But yeah, on top of kind of the typical Muppet cast, which we went over them when we did Muppet movies, so I really don't feel like we really have to do that again. Yeah. We do have our human cast. Most notably, we've got Tim Curry.
Who's Tim Curry? 2 weeks in a row, 2 wacky horror references.
Tim Curry is just the best.
This
Just
is not.
the best.
This is not even the first time he's played a pirate in a
Oh,
production. For me anyway, Fox at one point had a series based off Peter Pan, which Tim Curry played Captain Hook in that series.
that is true. Yeah. Um. Oh, and I just recently rewatched Clue, like
Yeah.
just like last week or something. Oh, I love Tim Curry so much. I love Tim Curry. Oh, best. Um, brilliant here as Long John Silver.
Tim Curry, he's just a great villain. Even if you count like Fern Gully, which would have been a few years before this.
Uh, yeah, that is true. And Fern Gully has one of the best villain songs. It really does.
It took
Like
me a while to realize that was actually Tim Curry singing that, because it doesn't sound like Tim Curry singing his normal singing voice.
Yeah, he really did change his voice for that. I love it. I loved everything about it. We went on a school trip to see that in theaters when I was a kid. But I'm gonna say that probably on screen, even though this is maybe not the most faithful adaptation of the story, this is probably my favorite version of Long John Silver as a character I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
I just love the way
awesome.
Yeah, I just love the way he plays him. He's got the right, you can understand why Jim would be taken in by him, but he's also got the villainy down. You can see that he's smart and calculating in the way that Tim Curry plays him. You know, you can always kind of see the wheels turning behind the eyes.
Oh yeah.
So I love everything about the portrayal. Like every choice he made as an actor, I'm like, yep, that was the exact right choice. And for some reason, even though this is Muppets, Tim Curry plays this like he's on stage at like the Royal Shakespeare Company or something. Like Tim Curry just goes like, I don't care if there's Muppets, I'm going to be awesome.
Tim Curry can make. I mean, honestly, his literal co-stars are stuffed animals, and he makes it good.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I honestly do not think that Tim Curry could ever do wrong in an acting scenario.
Right. We can talk about Tim Curry all day.
Yeah, just Tim Curry and the Muppets. That's all this podcast is now. This is the Tim Curry and the Muppets show. Okay, so moving on in the cast, though, we've got our little kid. We've got our Jim Hawkins, who is Kevin Bishop. And he is much, much better known in England than he is in America. This is one of the few things he's ever done that kind of crossed over into American stuff. He had his own variety show at one point in England as an adult. A lot of other TV series and stuff over there. But, you know, most of our audience currently is American. And I hate to say it, but unless you're like, I watch a lot of British television. I don't even recognize most of the names of the.
Unless you were in an episode of Doctor Who, most Americans are not going to know who you are.
Kinda. I mean, there's you know some stuff that crosses over on PBS, but this is all kind of stuff that like very few people in America have ever seen. But I did find out what is probably my favorite bit of random trivia ever while researching for this show.
All right, go for it.
He has now become, since 2017, this little kid from Muppet Treasure Island is now the speaking voice for 2D, which is the lead singer of the band Gorillaz.
So since you know one of the Gang Green Gang from Powerpuff Girls was a member of Gorillaz, it is all connected universe now with the Muppets,
Yeah, it's
Gorillas,
so weird.
and the Powerpuff Girls.
It is so weird. But yeah, if you don't know Gorillas, they're an animated band, and the singing voices are done by, kind of more musicians, but sometimes they do like virtual interviews or, whatever, and they need a speaking voice. And now that is Kevin Bishop. He is now the speaking voice for the lead singer of the Gorillas, which I find so weird. But in very, very small and generally criminally wasted parts in this thing, we've got absolute greats of British comedy. Jennifer Saunders.
Mhm.
Have we talked about Jennifer Saunders on the
No,
show?
I don't
Yeah,
think so.
she's done other, stuff work and stuff for various movies, and I'm pretty sure she's worked with Disney and other points. But yeah, best known for French and Saunders and Absolutely Fabulous. Two shows which actually would be known to Americans. They did cross over.
Mhm.
She sometimes appears on has appeared on American TV in kind of, little cameos and
She
stuff
was
like
the
that.
voice of the fairy godmother in the Shrek movies.
You beat me to it, because that was the next thing I was going to say, is she was the voice of the evil fairy godmother in Shrek 2, and she's the one that sings Holding Out for a Hero. Awesome cover of that song. Probably my favorite cover of that song. I love it. And then we've got Billy Connolly as Billy Bones.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Connolly kind of goes back and forth between whether or not he's doing comedy or drama there. But he's in Boondock Saints and Series of Unfortunate Events. He was in one of the Hobbit movies. But he's also a stand-up comedian that started out in the UK and then went on to act in there as well. Lovely Scottish comedian who I adore, and he is both Jennifer Saunders and Billy Connolly are just almost wasted. They make a big kind of a big impression at the beginning of the movie, but of course their characters are not in most of this story.
Mm-hmm. Billy Bones dies in this story, which makes him the first character in a Muppet movie to die.
Yeah, Billy Connolly actually worked that into his stand-up at one point, that he's the only person to ever die in a Muppet film. But Jennifer Saunders is a character who I'm not even sure is in the book, because she basically plays the owner of the inn, which in most versions of this story is Jim's mother, isn't it?
Yeah, at least in Treasure Planet, at least it was.
I mean, Treasure Planet it was, but I also think, he wasn't an orphan in the books. I know that much.
I only assume that they made him an orphan for this particular version as an excuse to just sail without any kind of responsibility.
Yeah, and he never goes back.
They even, even the ending of the movie, just to have sailing off, and then, but it also makes the idea of someone knowing who his parents are kind of odd.
Yeah. I think they just wanted another thing to do. Another little beat to connect him to the other characters.
Probably because, he has no other family. His family is Gonzo and Rizzo.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if, Jim is a human and Rizzo is a rat and Gonzo is a
whatever.
Whatever. They're family. Before I forget, I want to talk just half a second about the running whatever joke.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is kind of a joke that started earlier in the Muppets of Gonzo just being a whatever. But as you said, they released a Muppets from Space as their next movie after this.
Yeah.
And this movie goes so hard on the we don't know what Gonzo is, that part of me is wondering, were they already planning that and this was their setup for it?
Maybe. Even Gonzo is saying whatever as soon as they talk to him. Like, all right, we all know the joke. I know. I'm just gonna say this line so you don't have to.
Yeah, it's so weird. I don't know. I would love to know if the whatever stuff is in there just for that. I want to mention a couple of other things in the movie, which is this is a musical.
Yep.
All right, we've got Hans Zimmer doing the score, just kind of the legendary Hans Zimmer,
fresh off the Lion King, pretty much.
Yeah. But the more interesting thing to me is that the songs in this movie were written by a pop songwriting duo named Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, I think is the way you pronounce her last name. And they wrote some of the songs like Blame It on the Bossa Nova, the song On Broadway. They say the neon lights are bright on Broadway. You know, that one. And then weirdly, the weirdest part of their catalog to me is who put the bump in the bump, shabump, or whatever.
Who put the ram in the
ram? Yeah. So I was like, what the world are these people doing writing a Muppet movie? And apparently they didn't know either, because apparently they brought the first kind of draft of a song they were writing, and it was basically a kid's song, because they, like every other freaking person on the planet, apparently, looked at the Muppets and went, oh, that's just kids stuff. We said this before, the Muppets are the line that are geared at adults that kids can also be in the room for.
Jim went to his grave trying to get people to understand that.
Please, for the love of Jim Henson, get that right. So they are an all ages thing, but, you know, geared for adults to like it. Which makes me truly angry at the line in this movie. I thought this was a kid's movie. Like,
well, that line would not be there if Brian Henson didn't want that line in there.
I know, but I hate it. Anyway, they brought the kids song to Brian Henson, and he was like, no, that's not what we're about. And so they went back and they looked at previous Muppet movies and previous Muppet things, and they were like, oh wait, Muppets have always been about parodying now. You know, the things that are kind of hip now. You know, so when the Muppet Show started, the big thing was variety shows that were kind of inspired by vaudeville, so that's what they parodied. And then it was late night talk shows, so they did Muppets Tonight, and, you know, then it was The Office, so they did The Muppets, you know. And so the songwriters were like, oh, okay, we'll just try to do now, you know, and I think it works very well. I actually really like the songs in this.
It's almost like Disney is parodying Muppets are parodying a Disney movie almost.
It is in a way. So, you know, and there was a brief, we talked about this before, there was a brief resurgence of trying to get the pirate movie to work again at this time. So the interesting thing to me about this is that I don't want to claim like a super personal connection to this movie, but I do have kind of a cool connection to this movie, which is that one of the writers of the film, Kirk Thatcher, is kind of friend of friends, and I actually got to have lunch with him one time. Incredibly nice and funny and interesting guy who has had the weirdest career in all of Hollywood. He started out working at ILM, worked on like Return of the Jedi and stuff. The weird thing is he had a brief but memorable on-screen role in a Star Trek film. If you are a Star Trek fan, you remember Kirk as the punk on the bus that is playing loud punk music that Spock takes, Spock puts him to sleep because he doesn't like the music. That's Kirk Thatcher. That's the guy that wrote this movie. And then after that and stuff, he went on to work with Henson and the Muppets, and in fact still does. He's still working on it, and I think was the director, of a lot of the segments filmed for Muppets Now that just premiered on Disney Plus. So fascinating guy with a fascinating career. So
yeah, and this movie amazingly had a bit of controversy, as we were talking about before we started recording.
This is but right just before we get into the controversy, there is one thing I want to mention, which is we had talked about recasting some of the Muppet characters after the performers died, and strangely, one of the big characters in this movie was a recast of Richard Hunt. Richard Hunt did Sweetums, and Sweetums is a big character in this, and in the Sweetums costume is actually John Henson, one of Jim Henson's children, who had been specifically trained for the role by Richard Hunt. He had, worked on it. Unfortunately, we lost John Henson in 2014. Who, like his father, died at far too young an age, and very, very sad, and the character has since passed on. But it is kind of interesting that it's one of the Richard Hunt characters that was kind of almost immediately recast, and it was because he had specifically been training John to take over the role. Or perform it when he couldn't, or whatever.
Be in the puppets, and he'll probably do that, sort of like Carol Spinney during the his few years, that he had another performer in the Big Bird costume, and he would perform the lines off stage.
Yeah, it could have been like that. I don't know exactly what the relationship like that was, but we talked about before how Jim wanted characters to be able to continue in case of, retirement or death or whatever. But I had forgotten the connection that John had been in that. So I wanted to mention that because I find that really sweet and awesome. Now to the controversy of the film.
Not a Disney movie without controversy, right?
This is one of the funniest controversies. And I've actually heard Brian Henson and Kirk Thatcher talk about this at a panel that they did together and stuff, talking about the making of this movie. The Henson Company got sued over this movie. There is a pig character that is part of Piggy's little strange band of tribal pigs, called Spam. And Hormel heard about this before the film came out. I don't really know how they heard about this before the film came out. Maybe Hormel has like spies everywhere. I don't know. But
maybe there was a some sort of children's book and the character's name was in it, and that's how they found out.
I don't know. But before the film came out, Hormel sued the Henson Company for trademark infringement. You are using our trademark
Of spam.
Spam.
I don't like spam.
It went to court, as these things do. And this is one of the ones that I'm really glad that the Henson Company chose to fight it, because they probably could have just settled.
Mhm.
You know, hey, let's give you a cut of merchandise or something. But they chose to fight it, and I'm glad they did, because it led to, I am a big fan of like legal jargon and things judges and lawyers write as part of lawsuits. And so I actually went and looked this up, the actual decision from the judge. And I want to read you a very small part of it, because I just love the way it's worded. Henson's use of the name Spam is simply another in a long line of Muppet lampoons. Moreover, this Muppet brand of humor is widely recognized and enjoyed. Thus, consumers of Henson's merchandise, all of which will display the words Muppet Treasure Island, are likely to see the name Spam as the joke it was intended to be. We find, therefore, that the clarity of Henson's parodic intent, the widespread familiarity with Henson's Muppet parodies, and the strength of Hormel's mark always strongly against the likelihood of confusion as to the source or sponsorship between Hormel's mark and the name Spam. Moreover, this reasoning applies to both the use of Spam as a character likeness alone and the likeness and name together on Henson movie merchandise. I just love that as a as a decision of like, no, you idiots. People understand humor.
It's a joke. Parody.
Nobody's going to go like, wait, is this an official Spam Muppet? Like, no, it's not. Shut up.
Did Spam get this name because they're sponsoring this movie?
The thing is that I know people want to come down hard. You hear this thing and you want to go like, Hormel is stupid. But the problem with trademark is that if somebody does anything that might be a violation of your trademark, you are required to defend your trademark in order to keep it.
Yeah.
So you hear a lot about these big companies suing like tiny little guys, and it's like, well, boo the company. And by all means, I am anti-capitalist, boo the company. But the law forces them to. Because if they choose not to sue the little guy, and then the next time they choose to sue a big company who is actually, doing something with the copyright, that other infringing company can say, well, you don't care enough about the trademark to defend it in all circumstances. You didn't sue the little guy. And that can actually be used to defend that, the company is not out there vigorously defending their trademark. Which I think is nonsense.
Yeah, pretty much defend your property or lose it. It's kind of dumb, but yeah, laws. No one ever said the law had to make sense.
It probably should. I mean, just as like we live in a society here.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought that was a fun little thing from the judge. I probably think that Hormel probably didn't expect this to go anywhere.
Yeah,
I have a feeling this was probably just crap. We have to defend our trademark by suing the Muppets. So yeah. Anyway, I just love it because I just love the way that's written. So, you want to get into the actual plot here?
I mean, it's the plot of Treasure Island. We can kind of go through it again. Kind of, yeah. I mean, the general plot structure.
Things they kept. Jim works in an inn. Billy Bones comes into the inn, dies, leaves him a treasure map. Pirates try to kill him. He hires a boat to go look for the treasure. Long John Silver is on there, commits a mutiny. That's about it.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything else has changed. The interesting thing is that Long John Silver has a pet again, as he does in pretty much all versions of this story. Mm-hmm. But of course, the Muppets are weird, so instead of having a parrot, he has a lobster.
Shout out to our friend Cornflake.
Yes, our lovely friend Cornflake, who we hope to have again on the show one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I absolutely love the lobster, and of course they even shouted out in the movie, like, shouldn't a pirate have a parrot? And they're like, parrot? What kind of weirdo are you? No.
And lobster. We get a Disney joke.
Yeah, what's next? A talking mouse with his own theme park. Yeah. But the coolest thing about this character is that originally, or at least in one version of the script, this was going to be a parrot called Stevenson.
Like Robert Louis Stevenson.
Like Robert Louis Stevenson, who wrote the book. And apparently the entire point of this character was going to be to complain about all the stuff they changed from the book. Which I love. I just love the idea that they were going to put in a nitpicky little parrot that was like, in the original book, Jim wasn't an orphan.
I think that would have been a little bit too much of a fourth wall break, and people who may not be familiar with the story might not get the joke.
Yeah, I think it would have been annoying for most people, but I also kind of like the fact that at one point in the writing process, the writers kind of looked at each other and went, why don't we just preempt the annoying nitpickers that are going to be mad at us for throwing away 90% of the story? I love it. You were talking about fourth wall breaks. This movie is full of them.
Yeah. Most of them coming from like Gonzo and Rizzo.
Yeah, a lot of them do. We already mentioned one before when Rizzo says this is supposed to be a kid's movie. Statler or Waldorf says, we could be stuck in the audience watching this movie.
Yeah.
That would be worse than being stuck on the prow of the ship.
Like during the Treasure Island scene, the rat saying, and here we are on the jungle set of Muppet Treasure Island.
Yeah, at one point, I think Piggy says something about, it's Statler and Waldorf saving, Kermit and Piggy at the end of the movie, and they said something about, now we're heroes. Well, we were too late to save the movie,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this is just, and Swedish Chef. When Swedish Chef makes his weird little cameo appearances, one of the vegetables says, like, well, how else were we going to get him into the movie?
Swedish Chef with a pig nose on.
Yeah, I love that just Swedish Chef has just been hanging out with this pig tribe. We never get an explanation. It's just Swedish Chef disguised as a pig. Badly. Just to get
him in the movie. We needed to have the Swedish Chef in the movie. We needed a role for him. This was it.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. It's just so cool. I like Jennifer Saunders, going back to the beginning of the movie, because that's where we get our Jennifer Saunders and our Billy Connolly. But Jennifer Saunders, while I like her as an actress, I really don't like the way they do this portrayal in a way. Because I think, like the orphan thing, making her somebody you don't want to go back to seems like a choice just so they could change the ending of the book.
Which is weird because they flip flop on. Okay, because beginning she's like she doesn't care about them. Their only meals are the table scraps left behind by the other patrons. But then at the end, she's protecting Jim, telling him to get out of there, and I'll be fine. Don't come back for me. You know, like she's protecting Jim. Like, does she care about this kid or not?
Yeah, that's. I do feel that that's a little bit in the. I mean, there's a difference, I think, between I'm not a good boss and I will let pirates murder you. Like, I hope there's some kind of difference on that spectrum. And I guess maybe they didn't want to make her that evil. But I do just love Jennifer Saunders just losing her mind and like punting Muppets.
She's gone full Miss Piggy in this scene.
Yeah, she just totally, and then she like breaks through a brick wall, like, don't worry about me, I'll be fine. Go on. Like, I do love that part of her characterization, but kind of the rest of it, I don't really like. It's over the top in a way that I don't like.
It's also Jennifer Saunders in a fat suit.
Yeah, Jennifer Saunders in a fat suit. Not great. Billy Connolly, I like his performance better. It is also over the top, but it seems to fit more. And is less kind of insulting, I guess. But I do like his kind of like fake out death.
Yeah.
You know, that he's like, oh, and then he dies, and Rizzo makes the joke about him dying, and then he comes back and tells him more. So he gets like a pretty interesting little start, but then of course the problem with casting him as Billy Bones is Billy Bones dies to start the story. Like, it's a cameo, you know? So I feel kind of sad about that, because it would have been, you know, if you're going to change that much of the story already, just bring him along. That would have been fun to watch him and Tim Curry just like bounce off each other.
Or have him beat the Squire or something, you know?
Yeah. So I absolutely love it. I think the way they change some of the characters are a little bit weird.
Let's talk about the big change, at least for me. Benjamina gone.
Well, yeah, you have to get Miss Piggy in there anyway, and there is only one woman character in this entire story, which is Jim's mom, boss, whatever. I mean, Jennifer Saunders took that character.
Yeah, Piggy's not gonna take a cameo in a movie.
Yeah, and they decided not to go the Treasure Planet route and just make the captain, because of course Kermit has to be the captain. You can't cast him as anything else. So there's really not a place for Miss Piggy other than inventing her being on the island with a weird South Pacific tribe of pigs that are for some reason in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
I do not understand what this is.
I guess because at least with Treasure Planet, Ben is marooned there all alone. So I guess they didn't want to have Piggy being on the island all alone.
Well, yeah, but I don't know why there's a South Pacific tribe of pigs in the Caribbean. I really want an explanation for the South Pacific tribe of pigs in the Caribbean.
I'm gonna have to talk to Brian Henton on that one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very strange to me. Anyway,
If anyone listening knows Brian Henson.
Who do we know that knows Brian Henson? Anyway, the funny thing to me is that they changed a lot of the Muppet characters, not just the characters from the book, but the personalities of the Muppets.
Mm-hmm.
Kermit is not Kermit in this movie.
He's a more reserved Kermit. He's more of a heroic Kermit versus the ringmaster that he usually plays in the Muppet Show in the other Muppet productions. He's usually the guy that everyone comes to for advice. Now he's the captain, and he's more of a kind-hearted captain, because you have Sam the Eagle is ruthless in this movie.
Sam the Eagle is playing exactly Sam the Eagle.
Like, anyone who disobeys orders will be shot.
This is actually the first time Sam has gotten a big role in a Muppet movie. He's always like a background character, but this time he's like a kind of a main character. He's Mr. Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
He is the first mate of the ship.
There's no other Muppet character that would have fit that role, really.
Yeah, it's good casting in that sense, but yeah, it's so weird. But the ones that weird me out the most are Kermit and Fozzie. I think they got changed the most.
Fozzie's a little bit more naive than he usually is, talking to a creature that lives in his finger.
Yeah, Mr. Bimbo?
Mr. Bimbo.
Yeah. It's very, very strange to me that that's the direction they went with it, because yes, if you're going to modify the story to put Fozzie in it, it's okay to have him be kind of bumbling and naive.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that as part of Fozzie's character.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not an idiot, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
They describe him as like the half-wit rich son,
mm-hmm.
but I don't know. Fozzie is not, like, he doesn't know what the word ocean means. So they have to say we're going on the big blue wet thing, which leads to a great line in the song.
Yeah.
That's like one of my favorite lines in the song, sailing for adventure on the big blue wet thing. But why is that there? Like, Fozzie has never before been so ignorant that he wouldn't know common vocabulary words.
I don't know. And they kind of wanted, I mean, to say comic relief in a Muppet movie is kind of redundant, because all the Muppets are the comic relief.
Yeah, and if you want to get, like, you know, how do you get somebody to give them just a ship and a crew and fund their adventure?
Like, the treasure map should just be it.
Well, you could do it greed for the treasure map. Or
he is a rich kid. Rich kids love getting more money.
But I think better with Fozzie's already established character would be that he kind of takes pity on Jim. You know, like, oh, all I wanted to do was just go on an adventure once in my life. They've already set that up in the movie with him and Gonzo and Rizzo talking about that. Why not just state that in front of Fozzie, and Fozzie going, you know what? I understand that. I used to wanted to do whatever that century's version of stand-up comedy or whatever it is, you know.
I always wanted to be a stand-up philosopher.
Yeah, exactly. Have him show kindness to Jim. He's doing this out of kindness and not ignorance. Mm-hmm. He can still be naive about how difficult it's going to be, and, well, I don't exactly know how to hire a crew. Hey, Tim Curry, you don't look like a bad guy at all, despite being very obviously villainous. Why don't you pick me a crew, you know?
Like, well, I don't know much about crew, but we just hired a new chef. Maybe he might know something.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. Like, I don't, while I do kind of, there is a little bit of humor of like, Mr. Bimbo lives in my finger and he's been to the moon twice, you know. It seems so weird because it's so not Fozzie's character. And that kind of bugs me. The rest of the Muppets, I think we got their character mostly down. Like Gonzo and Rizzo seem to fit in pretty well where they got put. Mm-hmm. We like really established them as a great comedic duo in Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
So using them here again and doing a little callback, which I love, at the end with them putting out the lamp, which is a kind of a callback to them lighting the lamps in Christmas Carol. Mm. Their characters come across fine. Sam the Eagle, perfect. Miss Piggy is Miss Piggy.
Bunsen Beaker,
exactly. Statler and Waldorf come across. Sweetums comes across. All the rats.
Even the Electric Mayhem come off really great in this one.
Electric Mayhem come off really great, but like, for some reason...
Which side are we on? Just shut up and play the gig.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think is kind of like every musician ever, you know? Like, I don't really know why we're here, but we're going to play music.
They've already been paid to play the music, so they're going to play the music.
Yeah, so I just don't know why Kermit and Fozzie are... Well, Kermit, too. I don't really like... Kermit has almost no lines. And by this point, Whitmire had proven that he could carry Kermit. Mm-hmm. I think that while people were weirded out by new Kermit voice, which, I mean, they still are. That's the basic complaint of Muppets now. Is like, yep. I don't like Kermit's new voice.
Give Matt Vogel a chance, people. Give him a chance.
He's a brilliant performer. But I don't know why they chose to have him be so in the background. I mean, he spends most of the movie in the background, and then suddenly Piggy shows up, and it's like, oh yeah, we've remembered that Kermit is in this movie.
He's a pretty good swordsman for a frog.
Yeah, and once you let Kermit be Kermit, that's kind of his moments around Piggy are the first time that I'm like, oh, Kermit's back. So, you know, I don't know, let Kermit be Kermit. Dagnabbit.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with, like you said, giving Gonzo more screen time in here. Because since Muppet Christmas Carol, Gonzo's kind of almost pretty much, even though Kermit is the figurehead. This, you know, when this movie starts, you see Kermit's head on the Jim Henson logo.
Yeah, that's the old Jim Henson logo. It's so nice to see it with Kermit's head being outlined and like laser lights. So good.
But you know, like Gonzo gets the more lines, just like Muppet Christmas Carol. Gonzo almost, and it's almost like this was why they decided to make the next Muppet movie centered around Gonzo.
Well, the thing is that the three movies directly after Jim's death were a lot of Gonzo. Mm-hmm. Gonzo is our narrator for Christmas Carol. So we get a lot of him. He's not the main character, but he shows up a lot. In this one, he's almost the main character.
Pretty much. The main Muppet character, at least.
And then in, Muppets from Space, he is the Muppet from Space. I mean, that is his entire movie. The interesting thing is that there originally wasn't going to be a little kid in this.
No Jim, huh?
Well, there was, but originally Gonzo and Rizzo were going to be a double act playing characters named Jim and Hawkins. Yeah. And they were going to split the kind of the character between them.
That almost sounded like it could have been a better option.
I think it would have been. But the thing is that's a little bit of studio interference from what I have heard, is that apparently the studio, or whoever was the studio at the time, some producer didn't think that Gonzo and Rizzo could carry the emotion of the story very well.
You need
because
a human.
they're puppets. You need a human to connect with, which, let me tell you, that's not true. I've connected with the Muppets more than I've connected with any human ever in the history of the planet.
True.
I would
do
die
their own,
for a Muppet.
When fans do their own Muppet fanfics or whatever, that's almost no human actors. It's all Muppets doing all of the characters. It's like, just for an example, online someone redid the entire musical of Hamilton with Muppet characters. Not one human character is given a voice. They're all Muppet characters. So like the people are, the fans are more connected to the Muppets than they are to any human actor.
Yeah.
At least in their own films.
And I think that's what... I think that was the brilliance of the Muppets as a film. Because, in the writing of that, it's understood, I think Jason Segel, and whoever he may have been, working with, I think he had a co-writer, but Jason Segel's already a huge Muppets fan. So when he writes a movie, it's going to be like, what if you found out you were a Muppet? That's our viewpoint character. What if you, the giant Muppet fan, could be a Muppet?
And it worked for that movie. I love Walter as a character.
I love Walter as a character still. He was great on Muppets Now.
Yeah, I'm glad. It's still confusing why they didn't bring him back for the ABC series, but I'm glad that they brought him back from Muppets Now.
Yeah, agreed. I do like Walter as a character because Walter is wish fulfillment for us.
Yep.
If you are a diehard Muppet fan, I'm talking about diehard Muppet fan, Walter is your insert character. Walter's your little Mary Sue walking around getting to be a Muppet.
If Walter existed back then, he would have been Jim.
Kinda, it's like, but this is what, I saw that movie and I was immediately like, ooh, Walter is what I grew up wanting to be. If you'd have come to me as a kid and been like, you can be a Muppet, like, I cannot imagine my tiny little brain exploding. Honestly, if you said that to me now,
Mm-hmm.
If you told me I could just walk onto the set of a Muppet production, like not even be a Muppet or a performer or anything like that, just be near Muppets, mm-hmm. I would lose my mind. I mentioned before about getting to meet Steve Whitmire and him holding the Kermit puppet and me absolutely losing my mind over meeting Kermit.
Or if we could have met, I mentioned him again, if we met Carol, our friend Luke Ski got to meet Carol Spinney, and he felt the same way when Spinney brought out Oscar the Grouch.
Yeah, I got to meet Carol Spinney, but he didn't have any of the puppets with him, which made me sad. But the moment that I looked, I got to ask Steve Whitmire a question. And I said, "Hi, Steve," and then I just went like, "Hi, Kermit," because Kermit was staring at me. And then I kind of lost my brain, which was like, that's words I never thought I'd say, and I'm feeling really weird right now. It's like Whitmire had to calm me down. Like, I get it. It's a lot. I understand.
As Steve or as Kermit?
As Steve. He was like, no, I get it. It's a lot. Like, being confronted with Kermit the Frog is like a major life moment. I understand. Because he was a Muppet fan before he ever worked on that. So he's like, the first time I saw Kermit in person, same reaction. But, back to this movie, though, I hate when they force human characters into the situation thinking that we won't connect with the Muppets any other way.
Yeah.
There are use for human actors in Muppet movies, I think.
Usually as the villain.
Usually as the villain. I love human characters as the villain, and sometimes it's interesting to have human characters standing to the side being like, why are all these frogs and pigs and chickens and things here? You know? Mm-hmm. Just to state the absurdity of the situation. You know, we talked about how brilliant Steve Martin was in the coming up with like, great, now I have to be a waiter for a frog and a pig. You know? It's such a good, that's where you use humans in relation to the Muppets, but you don't use humans as the emotional core of a Muppet movie.
Yeah, it's called Muppets Treasure Island, not Human Treasure Island.
And as far as child actors go, I really did like this kid. He does an amazing job in this movie. Yeah. Nothing against this actor. This actor is brilliant, but kind of superfluous in a way. Yeah. I hate to say.
Now that you said it, I'm just thinking of that essentially Gonzo as Jim would have been not necessarily, I won't say a better movie, but a more interesting movie.
Yeah. The thing is, though, is that I can sort of understand from a writing position one reason not to do that. While watching Tim Curry with Gonzo and Rizzo is beautiful and wonderful and my everything, it's hard to form the fatherly connection.
Yeah, because you kind of, I mean, as we talked with Treasure Planet, with Jim not having a father and kind of seeing a father figure in Silver, you kind of do, that is part of the core of the Treasure Island story, is Jim and Silver forming that bond.
If you're going to cast Gonzo as Jim Hawkins, you have to start the movie with him being a whatever, in a very literal sense. I don't know if I have a parent. Presumably I came from somewhere, but I don't know if I have a mom and a dad. You know, maybe he's a foundling whatever that got left on the inn's doorstep.
And you could easily rework that around Silver. Like, I've seen something like you before.
Yeah, I used to work on a ship with a man that had a nose just like yours. You know, that's okay. It just would have taken like an extra step. Mm-hmm. You know, I think you have to work a little bit harder, but you can make the connection, I think. The interesting thing is we've already really talked about this as a plot. Mm-hmm. Because we talked about it in Treasure Planet. So really the only thing to talk about is just how the Muppets changed that.
One joke that I really did like, and it actually does come back later, is the three Toms. Old Tom, really old Tom, and dead Tom.
I love the Toms.
And then, oh no, dead Tom is dead. Of course he's dead. That's why he's called Dead Tom.
Yeah, he's always been dead. Oh, right. I also, I absolutely think, and I hate myself for laughing at the line, but when they're doing the pirate roll call, of course, there's big fat ugly bug face baby eating O'Brien, which is possibly one of my favorite character names ever. Do
we know who played her? Because she's not listed.
Her name is Jessica Hamilton. She's English model and actress.
Definitely not her voice.
She looks so much. Growing up, I thought this was a cameo by Gina Davis.
Gina Davis was in another pirate movie.
I know, but she looks, the way they've got her styled, the way they did her hair, the way she looks like Gina Davis for like just that second that she's on screen. But
and you never see her for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, no, she's just there for that one, you know, on stage, you know, that one little cameo for that joke, that punchline. But I love some of the other names that they come up with, like, that they do the whole eye joke. One-eyed Jack, black-eyed Pea, wall-eyed Pike. It just goes through the whole thing. I love the running gag of the names. I don't know why, but it's so funny to me.
And the guy with no head.
And the guy with no head, yeah, headless. I forget what his last name is. Headless Bill. And then they're looking around for him, and it's just a Muppet with no head. I want to talk a little bit about some of the interesting puppetry in this, because they do a lot of jokes where they have to modify the puppets.
Yeah, where they find the first one, the earliest one is when they find the treasure map, and you have Gonzo's eyes turning into dollar signs, and Rizzo's eyes turning into X marks because he thinks we're gonna die.
Yeah, we're gonna be rich. We're gonna be dead. I love that bit, and that's a creative edit that by the time they turn around, camera cut, by the time they turn around, their pupils are back to normal. It works a little less well when you do the eyes in the dark, which, as we talked about before, is possibly one of my favorite animation jokes.
And they made it work in live action.
And they made it work in live action with Muppets, which I adore. The only problem is that whatever they used to light the eyes from the inside apparently did not have an easy off switch. Because when the lights come up and you see the full figures with the reveal of the pig tribe, their eyes are still glowing. And it breaks the joke just slightly. I think if they did it today, they'd probably have like a complete remote control LED system that they could just shut the eyes off the second they turn the lights up.
Or just use CGI. Let's be honest.
Muppets are so dedicated to practical effects that I find it difficult to believe they would have done that CGI even if they'd have had the option. And honestly, they kind of did have the option in the 90s. It wasn't as good as it is today, but they sort of had the option to do that as a post effect. But the thing is that the Muppets are all about figuring out how to do these gags in a practical sense.
I mean, the only CGI they do use is to actually remove the control rods.
They did some of that in here, and the interesting thing is they don't always do it.
Yeah.
There are parts in the movies where you see the arm rods, but the most interesting part where they had to completely remove them is also one of my favorite bits of puppetry.
Mm-hmm.
Which is Kermit and Piggy hanging upside down off the cliff.
Yeah, those are the radio control Muppets that they kind of started using with Fraggle Rock, I believe.
Here's the thing is, I don't think they are.
Well, the thing is, the reason I think it is that Kermit's face does not emote while they're upside down. Like, usually when Kermit emotes, Whitmire or Jim or whoever is using their knuckles and their fingers to kind of move the upper mouth to give them a different expression. And you don't see that when they're upside down.
But the reason why I think it is they have a fan blowing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that the cliffs are really windy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's making Piggy's little feather neck piece and her hair and stuff go in all different directions. And I'm pretty sure that's because they filmed this entire scene with the camera upside down. I think they built out part of the cliff. I would really love to know this for sure, if anybody listening actually knows for sure. But I think that this was a camera trick. And I think that this is one of the times when they had to remove the control rods in post, because while they could blow the hair around to make it look like they're hanging upside down so that, gravity doesn't give it away, you can't easily do the hand from one position and the arm rods from another that well. And there are moments where, take my hand and, all that kind of stuff, where the characters do not have any arm rods. And I think that's because they're filming it upside down.
Possibly. Another one of my favorite gags in this one is, I feel like this has had to been a Disney mandate where they get rid of all the booze on board.
That is kind of funny of the pirates not drinking because Kermit wants to set a good example for this scurvy crew.
Yeah, and the idea of, you constantly have Fozzie pouring brandy and throwing out the window, pouring brandy and that's a waste of good brandy right there.
I am so mad at Fozzie for wasting. It's rum, I think, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, rum.
I think they make the joke of the rum, but yeah, do not waste good booze.
And they do make it a joke with the rats, saying, "Hey, you're throwing booze all over the dock here, all over the deck."
Yeah, you're peeling the paint off the deck.
And that's another joke, is that Rizzo is selling tickets to the other rats.
Yeah,
make it a cruise.
A Caribbean cruise. Yeah, you're going on a cruise. I want to talk about just the musical numbers real quick.
All right.
Because this one does not necessarily have the most famous Muppet songs, but this one has some shockingly good Muppet songs. There are at least 3 numbers in here that I absolutely adore.
So I guess Shiver My Timbers, that's the first one, the first song in the movie, which actually is a pretty good song.
Shiver My Timbers, I think, is one of the best pirate songs in history. I really love it. If you happen to be listening to this and are part of any sort of pirate-themed band, perhaps your pirate-themed band might want to consider doing a cover of this. Sorry, that was for one specific friend I know will be listening. So I absolutely love that song. It's such a great mood setter for the movie, and it almost seems like it comes from a different movie.
Yeah.
It's like a very dark kind of a song,
especially
in a way.
That the song ends with the captain killing its crew.
Yeah, and I think they bring up Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Yeah.
In that as well.
That's the line before the gunshots.
Yeah. So maybe Billy Connolly wasn't the first person to die in a Muppet movie.
On screen, at least.
At least on screen, yeah. I like the lyrics in Something Better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really like the tune as well.
Something's on with Jim's singing voice. They have him sing really high, I guess, because he is a young kid. But it is degrading.
There's a story behind that.
Mm-hmm.
The reason Jim's vocals sound so weird is because when the character was cast, of course, they bring in Kevin Bishop, tiny little Kevin Bishop, prepubescent Kevin Bishop, and they say, hey, before we go into filming, record some scratch tracks so that we can start putting together all the music and orchestrations and stuff and use this to hear the mix. And then by the time they got to filming the actual movie,
puberty
hits, yeah, and his voice dropped a bit, which is why the voice doesn't exactly sound like it's coming from the actor. Like his speaking voice is a very different quality, because that's what happened. And for some reason, I don't know if like his range changed to where he couldn't have the full range of the song or whatever. But for some reason, after his voice changed, they did not consider it correct for what they had written. So that's why his singing sounds strange, is because it was never intended to be in the movie. I love Shiver My Timbers, but kind of my three favorite as like a set pieces and songs together are Sailing for Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really love Sailing for Adventure on the Big Blue Wet Thing. Just it was in all of the commercials for this movie. I loved it before I ever saw the film. Cabin Fever is such a good song.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Cabin Fever, it's catchy. It's a very Muppety. It just feels like a song Muppets should be singing. And
the fact
everything
that they go
about
full
the production.
Full out with its, weird camera tricks. There's strobe lights on the pirate ship as they're singing
all of
this song.
the weird costumes. This feels like a Muppet showpiece.
Yeah.
It's so good. It feels really classic Muppets, and I love it for that. And then Love Let Us Here is it's a bomb song. Like, it is so good. And I hate that every single recorded version of this song is ear-splittingly awful.
We have talked about Frank Oz's falsetto voice in their Muppet.
And it's not his fault, really. Because, even now, because I talked about how modern Piggy has a slightly better falsetto singing voice. But it's not really his fault. But, man, in this one, it is just, I don't know if it's like the age he was, or he was too distracted doing this other movie to really give it his all. I don't know, but like Piggy's voice in this is just like, do not listen to this with headphones on. It's like, it can shatter glass in the worst sort of way.
And a couple hours ago when we were talking about this on Facebook, I mentioned that there's another version over the ending credits, and you said that this version was worse.
Yeah, because they give it, I'm going to show my sort of bias, but my bias is there for a different reason, I guess, than most people would say this. They gave it to two country stars who twang their way through it, and it drives me nuts. I'm sorry, but it's a personal thing. I know a lot of people, when they're like, I hear a Southern accent, and all I can hear is just an idiot hick or whatever. That's not it. That particular type of voice sounds like every kid who beat me up in school. It was all the good old boys and the good country, grits girls. I don't know if anybody outside the South knows that acronym, but that became a big thing in the South, where the girls raised in the South were grits. Ugh. So yeah, whenever I hear that kind of like that particular kind of voice, I just expect somebody to be like throwing something at my head any second now. So
it was 96, and there was that big resurgence of country music.
Yeah, that was a big thing right about then. I get why they did it, kind of, but it's a personal thing. It's just, to me, it's like a PTSD kind of thing. It triggers me, and I do not like it.
Well, if you want a version that you like, it's not like you don't know a bunch of singers that, you could say, here's some money, please sing a better version of the song.
I actually went to see if anybody, like, just on YouTube or whatever, had done a cover of this. I found one, like, legit cover, not where people were trying to be like, look, I can do a Kermit impression and I'm going to sing this song. Not that. But like somebody just singing it as a song because it's a pretty song. And he did a really good job, but it's kind of old and his equipment wasn't that good. So it's, the audio quality is not great. I would love to hear somebody like take this on as a legitimate duet and like really perform it as the love song it is. Because it's an awesome love song. I really do love this song, but it just, I want to be able to listen to it where I'm not like cringing through part of it.
The best song in this movie, though, is Professional Pirate, because it's Tim Curry.
Well, yeah, but I don't know. I don't go around singing Professional Pirate. I love Tim Curry performing it, but it's not a song that I sticks in my brain. Cabin Fever I have sung in its entirety as a dance number in my house at least a dozen times during the quarantine. Like, this is the song of the quarantine for me. So, I don't know. There's songs that you're like, I appreciate your performance of that. And then there's songs that you're like, I just love this as a song. I'm going to go around singing it. And for me, that's sometimes I break into Sailing for Adventure. Cabin Fever gets a lot of play. And I really like Love Let Us Hear just as a love ballad. It's really pretty.
All right. And for some reason, Ziggy Marley does a song for this movie.
Yeah, once again, kind of a Caribbean flavor in a movie with a South Pacific pig. It just bothers me so much. I'm sorry. But yeah, they do Love Power.
Yeah.
At the end of the credits is, nice little reggae jam at the end. I don't really know why. I have no clue why that is in the movie.
If you know Brian Henson, please.
Yeah. Somebody please get us some answers about this movie. I love it. Oh, I love it.
There was one thing now that I was going to say before we went off what the song is like. When they're upside down, Piggy's skirt doesn't kind of fall over or anything. Not like I wanted to see a Piggy panty shot, but it's like that's a good dress there that just does not fall over in any capacity, which is probably why you thought the scene was filmed upside down.
No, I think that there's some construction in that clothing that makes Kermit's look like it's falling over and Piggy's not. Like, I think it's actually in the construction of it, because when the puppet moves, the fabric really doesn't. And if you work with fabric a lot, which I do, you kind of get used to like the way it drapes and stuff. I think if you were to remove that dress from the puppet, it would stand up on its own. Yeah. That's my theory from watching it move. No matter where they which orientation they filmed it in, I think that was constructed not to move. I think that's a solid piece and not really just fabric. Because nobody's well, I'm not saying nobody. Shout out to our furry friends who also love puppets, I guess. But I don't think Disney is all about giving us that scene.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, kind of took more about Piggy, and again, her Benjamina's story is kind of a novel because apparently, she was gonna marry Kermit, and then Kermit kind of left her at the altar. Bad Kermit, bad. It's
we
very
don't really
much
get a reason for it. It's just
he got cold feet.
You left me cold flippers. He got cold flippers.
Mm-hmm.
Left her at the altar. We don't really get more than that.
Yeah, she ends up hooking up with Captain Flint at the beginning of the movie, and who leaves her on the island.
Yeah.
So apparently, after murdering his crew, Captain Flint just leaves his girlfriend, Miss Piggy, on the island
with the treasure. And we get to see it because he's wearing the treasure as her jewelry. Yeah, we all know how obsessed with wealth and jewelry Miss Piggy is. So it was probably great for her. Possibly this is the closest Miss Piggy's ever gotten to her dream, because she just has like an entire tribe of pigs that worships her, and she has all the jewelry she could ever wear. Yeah, just no one to gloat about it too. Yeah, that is true. And apparently she also hooked up with Silver at some point. I'm sorry, but if you're near Tim Curry and you don't hook up with Tim Curry, like on any level, like romantically, platonically, sexual, whatever, if you do not want to be near Tim Curry, you and I are not living in the same universe.
And I love Kermit's reaction to that.
Available,
he's like, him too. It's like, even it's kind of, and yeah, even at that point, though, Kermit realized like this is all his fault.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting in that way, I guess.
If he hadn't gotten scared about getting married and married Piggy, she wouldn't have been on the island. But we've kind of talked about before how Piggy and Kermit are not the best couple.
Yeah, this is not a great thing there. Yeah, go listen to the previous Muppet episode about that. Anyway, I think we've probably, I mean, we could talk about this for several more episodes, I'm sure, because Muppets and Tim Curry.
So yeah, let's kind of go towards the end here, because we get Silver. He has the treasure. He's escaped from the brig, and we kind of did skip over the joke of how Silver got rid of Mr. Arrow to begin with by inspecting the boats, and then that's how Arrow kind of gets out of the picture for a bit. And then
we're led to think he's dead, but instead he's just off to the side inspecting the boats, and everybody just assumes he's dead.
And then say, "Oh, I inspected that boat previously, and that boat has a leak in it." And then we see Silver using the treasure to kind of
bail out the water,
bail the water out, really, and he's sinking. And they couldn't bring themselves to have Tim Curry sink, so he ends up swimming back to the island with no treasure and all of the talking tiki things apparently that are on that island talking to him. Not the pig tribe, but the other.
Yeah, they left the boat. Apparently, the pig tribe is like, this island isn't so great. Although apparently it's an island of abundance.
To be fair, their queen is leaving, so they're going to follow their queen.
Yeah, but their queen's also Miss Piggy, so it might be nice to have a little quiet on the island after that, is all I'm saying. But yeah, apparently this is an island of abundance, because if you look at the amazing variety of ingredients Swedish Chef is cooking with at that one point.
There's a lot of fruits and vegetables on that island, and we do see Silver eating a banana.
This is... The ending to this is kind of weird. Mm-hmm. In Treasure Planet, since that's what we've talked about before,
Silver gives Jim a few of the coins he was able to steal from the planet so his mom can rebuild the inn, and then we eventually see Jim entering the academy, and he has a pretty good life set up for him.
Yeah, but the reason that John Silver isn't in jail in that one is because he saved Jim's life, and Jim, in payment, he doesn't want to, like, thanks for saving my life, here's forever in jail, And Silver didn't directly kill anybody in that story, in Treasure Planet.
No.
That we see. There's a question maybe about Billy Bones.
Yeah.
But at least on camera he doesn't kill anybody. So Jim is like, okay, life for a life, I'll let you go. I won't tell on you. I'll let you get away.
Yeah, but if you ever cross paths again, I'll bet you off.
Yeah. In Muppet Treasure Island, this is a very weird scene. Jim sees Long John in the boat,
with the treasure.
With the treasure, getting ready to leave, and Jim is about to blow the bosun's whistle to call everybody to come recapture. And Silver pulls a pistol on him and is basically like, please do not make me shoot you. Like, I really value my freedom, but I don't want to kill you.
You're a good kid. Don't make me do it.
Yeah, and there's a very tense standoff of, is Jim going to blow the whistle? Is Silver going to fire the pistol? You know, what's going to go on here? And eventually Silver kind of lowers his pistol and is like, I could never hurt you. Do what you're going to do. And Jim chooses not to blow the whistle and lets him leave with the entire treasure.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And the thing is that Kermit immediately appears as Silver is rowing away and is like, you did good, Jim. That was a good thing. I approve of that thing. That the guy is leaving with all the... the
guy that just
mutinied.
Yeah, the guy that just mutinied your ship and stole all the treasure from the island is getting away, and you're okay with this, Kermit.
Yeah, it's a very weird, again... Kermit is kind, but he's also given to exasperation. Like, this would have been the moment for Kermit to be like, why are you letting him get away? You know, like... The
only time we ever see Kermit be like Kermit is, who hired this crew?
Yeah, that's kind of the only point you kind of get a Kermit flail in that kind of exasperated sense, which is part of Kermit's personality. You know, he's kind and he's wonderful and he's caring, but he also gets a little fed up with the shenanigans sometimes. But yeah, it doesn't really make sense, except that John Silver kind of always gets away.
Yeah, that's part of the story.
It's part of the story. Like, oh well, we gotta do this part of the story, I guess. So it doesn't really feel like it, because John Silver never really redeems himself in this version. Mm-mm. In Treasure Planet, he redeems himself. He gives up being a pirate. He lets the treasure go. He saves Jim's life. Okay. Redemption. But in this one, he's never redeemed. He just chooses not to murder a child. Which is not exactly the same thing. In my opinion.
Yeah, and he also, early in the movie, actually briefly turns against his crew to let Jim escape. Killing dead Tom, who's already dead.
Yeah. I mean, there is that, but he never really turns against the crew. He just won't murder a child. That seems to be his line. So, I don't know. It doesn't feel as earned to me why Jim lets him go. There's never a point where Jim, like, forgives him, I guess, for the...
Yeah.
For the mutiny.
It's a choice. It's an odd choice. And I guess they wanted to have Silver get some kind of comeuppance, hence why he has the hole in the boat. He loses the entire treasure, and he's stuck on the island essentially by himself. And talking tiki.
And instead of having the money to go rebuild the inn, they just end the movie with Jim being like, off to adventure somewhere, point the ship in some direction, let's go see what's out there.
Jim is just going to sail on forever with his captain and whatever left of the crew, and all of these cruise ship rats who are likely never going to see their home again because sail forever.
Yeah, when are they getting home? Where is Piggy just going to stay on board and be like, you know...
The new crew is the pig tribe.
Yeah, the new crew is the pig tribe. I guess Swedish Chef is the new ship's cook.
And you do have to take the pirates to the
jail.
Like,
jail. I don't. Yeah, it seems a little bit. I get it thematically, but logistically it doesn't work out.
That's really, and like we said before, that's probably why they changed the relationship between Jim and the owner of the inn to just have Jim being an orphan, because, well, we want to have Jim sail on to adventure without having to go back.
Yeah, it is kind of his I Want song at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I want adventure in the Great Wide Somewhere. But yeah, it does change the motivation of the character quite a bit. So, we've reached the end of Muppet Treasure Island, so we gotta ask the big question: is there magic?
I'm going to say yes.
I am also going to say yes.
As an adaptation of Treasure Island, it's not that good, but as a Muppet movie, it's great.
That is also my summation of this. Like, as a Muppet movie, it mostly works. I'm not going to say it's great. This is not going to be, top 3 Muppet movies of all time for me. I'm just going to be honest. But I enjoy it. I had fun singing along to the songs on the rewatch, my dog staring at me like I lost my mind. It's great. Which I have, because at this point, we all have cabin fever. But, you'd recommend this, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, if you haven't rewatched it in a while, or you've never seen it, maybe this one, you missed it. It's definitely worth the watch, just for Tim Curry alone.
Yeah.
Muppets alone will recommend the movie to me. Tim Curry alone will recommend the movie to me. If you're into either one of those things and haven't seen this, good start there. It's on Disney Plus as per usual. But the other thing we gotta ask is, let's wrap up our Talk Like a Pirate month here.
Yeah, so let's go with let's one more time on all the movies we did review this month. Treasure Planet, definitely a recommendation. A lot better than I remember it being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We liked it. We were both shocked by that one, I think, as to how well it held up and how we'd kind of forgotten how good it was.
Yeah. Pirates of the Caribbean 1 definitely still holds up, a classic movie in itself. And
Best movie we watched this month.
Yeah.
The absolute winner of Talk Like a Pirate month. Yeah.
Peter Pan.
Please don't.
I don't think we need any more adaptations of Peter Pan.
Show your kids the We Can Fly scene and be done with it. That's it. That's all the movie is. We can fly. Fairy dust makes you fly. The end. That was the movie. Goodbye.
And Muppet Treasure Island. Definitely good.
Yeah, like it. So, 3 winners, 1 exceptional winner.
So if we had to rank them, I would say Pirates definitely number 1. It would have to be a toss-up between, I would say Treasure Planet number 2, Muppet Treasure Island number 3, and by default 4 would be Peter Pan.
I don't even want it on this list. I will say one thing about Peter Pan is I have already heard some feedback from that episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that, we talked about it behind the scenes of, we thought that was going to be our most contentious episode and everybody was going to hate us for it and how dare you crap on a classic. Every bit of feedback that I've gotten from that episode so far is, thank you. I absolutely loathe this story, this movie, and everything to do with this character. So apparently we hit a nerve among people, generally our age is what I've been hearing from, but people of our generation apparently absolutely loathe everything about Peter Pan. So, we're not alone.
All right.
But yeah, I will say that as far as Treasure Island movies, since we did 2 of them, Treasure Planet is the better plot. But Muppet Treasure Island has Muppets and Tim Curry.
Yeah, it's true.
So decide which of those things you are more interested in, and that's your number 2 or number 3 for this month. It's going to be a personal thing.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, again, the thought process of releasing two Treasure Island movies 5 years apart from the same film studio.
Apparently the story resonates with people. I am not one of those people, but apparently the story resonates with people enough that they keep doing versions of it. I don't know.
I guess. So that's all we can say about that. Let's move on to next week, because next week is October, which starts spooky season. Yeah, get out your pumpkin spices and all the stuff and the skeletons and everything else and the candies.
Yes, yes. Everything Halloween season, Day of the Dead season, anything spooky. Anything spooky that you want. What?
Speaking of spooky, because next week's episode is going to be a movie not necessarily Halloween related, but a movie that scared the bejesus out of both of us when we were kids.
Yeah, this movie is responsible for the nightmares of an entire generation, I feel.
And it's a sequel to a movie Disney didn't make.
Yeah, this is a weird one.
Return to Oz.
Yes, another Brian Henson movie, strangely. Not directing this time. He is actually acting and puppeteering in that one, as opposed to this one, which he directed. But a very young Fairuza Balk.
Yeah, as Dorothy.
As Dorothy, yeah.
Dorothy Gale. We'll get back in.
We couldn't do the other Fairuza Balk Halloween movie, so we're going to do this.
Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. So yes, join us next time for Return to Oz as we start spooky season on the show. Oh, again, big thanks to Tom Smith for letting us use Talk Like a Pirate Day, his song, all month for these episodes. Again, thank you, Tom. We owe you big time.
If you've been listening to our episodes and you have not gone and checked out his Bandcamp page or, him performing on YouTube or anything else he's done, we are disappointed in you, and you need to stop that and go to his website right now.
TomSmithOnline.com. Go there. You will not regret it. He is amazing.
Yeah, one of the best. Thank you, Tom. We love you.
All right, so we're going to wrap this up. Join us next week for Return to Oz. Halloween season starts, and we will talk to you all next week. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Rewatching the Magic. We invite you to keep the magic going by joining the conversation online. Find us on Facebook at Rewatching the Magic, on Twitter at Rewatch the Magic, and of course, find all new episodes at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com. Until next time, remember, the magic is for everyone. It only stops if you let it.